Hi, Angie. Welcome back to Face. Great to
Thanks for
see
having
you.
me.
And yeah, so we have some things to cover. We had a red wave. What's the agricultural industry thinking about with this new administration?
Well,
Tariffs?
yeah, I mean I don't think you can throw a rock at this point without having someone talk about how tariffs are going to impact agricultural trade. So, I feel like that's at the forefront of everyone's mind to a certain extent, but we're also watching or waiting to see a lot of us on, we forget about the phase one agreement that was made in January of 2020, and the fact that the Biden administration hadn't necessarily rolled back much in the way of the Trump tariffs to begin with, too. And so I feel like yes, the talk is definitely warranted about tariffs and what it means for ag trade, but I think, in a lot of ways we may have the cart in front of the horse when it comes to what is going to happen and what it'll mean for trade as we move forward, for commodities, agricultural commodities at least.
Okay. Um, so, I've been looking for this base. I think this was the last time we were on, and corn turned.
Yes.
Its lows are well behind it. Um, so I'm thinking, do you think that if, there are going to be tariffs on China, but I don't think we're going to put tariffs on our agricultural products because we want to help the U.S. farmer. And,
Mhm.
the new administration wants to weaken the dollar, which will also help exports. Do you think that if we put, um, you know, tit for tat with China and tariffs, that we'll lose them as a customer again? They'll go to Brazil.
Well,
Can Brazil fill their needs? Are they coming in with they have a good crop going? Because carryover on beans on all the grains is pretty tight, isn't it?
yeah, I mean, carryover is seen as relatively adequate, right now at this point. There's a lot of unknowns left, or at least answers that we will get when it comes to actual U.S. production here in the January USDA report. So unfortunately, we've got about 6 weeks, before we'll have much in the way of solid answers that are more data driven perhaps than survey and some other field evidence driven, and so that'll be the one
Yeah,
thing that we'll watch and that's the wild card. But yeah, the worry is that if we get into a trade war again, or which I have to say, I hate that when we get into, if we get into, we've never stopped trade warring. Like it is not one of those things where like, Trump left office and it was kumbaya and we all sang together. I mean, it really
right.
is one of those things where it has been a continual pressure on China from the US. I mean, you've seen, pretty solid targeted trade restrictions with chip, your AI, your all of these other
Yeah,
things, electric vehicles. So it's not like China's been like, oh, we've had this great, reciprocal relationship over the last 4 years, and that's just going to be trashed. So I want to kind of make that point that
right.
that's not the case. Even during the bulk of the trade war, or at the height of
Great
the
point.
trade war, one of the things that China was able to do to really offset their demand for beans, I say do, it happened to them. They had African swine fever basically rampage their hog herd. And so a lot of people
Right.
forget that in 2018, their hog herd was basically decimated, absolutely destroying their demand, which helped them cut, their imports from the US from like 1.1 billion, to around 300 million the following year, which was huge and it had massive implications on price. However, the following year, we saw them in 2019 come in and buy, an additional 500 million bushels because they'd had more mouths to feed. Obviously, Brazilian production has increased enough to where it can kind of push the US out when it comes to Chinese demand. But I think one of the things that's also important to remember in the bean market is it's not just, yes, China is a huge consumer of beans, and they're going to be a huge importer of beans, whether it's Brazil, the US, Argentina, what have you. They're going to need to import, 90 million metric ton of beans give or take. But you've also seen a massive expansion in global biofuel demand that's,
Yeah,
basically, palm oil, soybean oil, canola
right.
oil, sunflower seed oil. And so the market structure is very different too. So yeah, we could give up or see a reduction in China purchasing from the US, but that doesn't mean necessarily like right now everyone says if this, then this is guaranteed. That's not necessarily the case. There's a lot of a lot of things that we still have to position around to see what happens. And so to me it's not as black and white as what everyone wants it to be at this point.
Okay, I look at the beans and the fact that we bottomed here on the daily and it was confirmed makes me think that we could press for another low coming in beans. Although I don't think that's going to happen in wheat. We're putting in a nice higher low. And I guess you have to say corn has the most constructive chart of the three. Reasons for
Hmm.
the strength in corn compared to beans and wheat.
Yeah, corn has definitely has the best demand story that we've seen out of all three
Okay.
markets at this point in time, and that surprised a lot of folks. One of the things that we talked about when I was on in August with you was that I thought we were kind of stuck in this sort of echo chamber where there were a lot of people saying that we didn't really have much in the way of corn demand, even though we were seeing the US was really the only supplier of consequence of corn of high quality, readily available, able to be shipped corn in the world. And that continues. We have seen a bit in the way of competition coming in from Ukraine and Argentina here recently. Brazil's gotten a little bit cheaper in the short term because they've had some logistical improvements. River levels have gone up. But when you look at, our corn export sales, the program itself is off to one of the best starts for corn in many many years. Like 2020 was huge, and so it's one of those where we're kind of following that pattern. But we're really working to outpace the USDA's export projections, and it looks as though we could see those, that demand level get bumped up here in upcoming reports. In addition, we've had record ethanol exports. And so one of the things that we had really kind of, pressure corn here is all of that talk of the blend wall, right? We're only going to use so much fuel and we can only put so much ethanol into that fuel. And so long-term demand is going lower was the narrative. It's not the case. We've actually last year was, if not record, close to record ethanol production and record ethanol exports. And I think we see a continuation of that that's going to help to support domestic corn demand as well.
Okay.
$4 corn is cheap, and one of the things that historically speaking, anyway, and we're talking about strong exports, we're talking about strong ethanol demand, but you also feed $4 corn. Like the old adage is with a scoop shovel, you feed expensive corn with a teaspoon, you feed cheap corn with a scoop shovel, and so I think we're going to see some real strong demand continue in corn, and the risk is there, that the crop is a bit smaller. If you look at spread action, if you look at corn spreads, they've went from, 20 cents worth of carry to 10 cents or less worth of carry, which is a sign that there's not as much in the pipeline to meet demand currently as we would want to see. A lot of folks have said that that's because of slow farmer selling, but if you look at the commitment of traders reports over the last couple of weeks, farmer selling's been anything but slow. And so the speculators have gotten long corn. There's a lot of different reasons as to why, and it'll be interesting to see where we head next. We can't seem to break out of trap den is our only problem.
Yeah, and you know what? You have to respect how corn has acted in the face of a stronger dollar.
Oh yeah.
This has been one heck of a dollar rally.
Yeah. Well, and even with the rally in the dollar, we're still seeing super strong export demand. So like this
That's
week's
what I
export
mean.
sales report for wheat even came in on the high end of expectations. Corn came in more in the mid range, but as I was saying, when you look at corn export sales versus a year ago, they're up substantially and the USDA is currently not projecting that type of increase.
Okay, I wanted to ask you with the oils that are used for energy purposes, is nat gas a competitor to any of the agricultural based energy products?
It can be. I mean, to a certain extent, I think you're going to see that more in our foreign, maybe some foreign market structures that you would see if nat gas is cheap. Or if it gets expensive. I mean, really, when it comes down to it, nat gas is in grains is more of an input than I mean, I'm not going to say that it's not a competitor by any means. Someone in the industry
Okay.
will probably correct me if I don't. But it's an input in ethanol production, and so
Okay.
it's a cost.
All right. And the costs are going up. Is that going
Yes,
to
and
have
so your
impact
margins are getting pinched a
then?
bit.
Oh, just
Yeah,
what they, yeah, just what those producers need
not
right
what we want
now.
to see. No.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I did want to touch about anything you're seeing in the meat markets that we should be paying attention to.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen some continued strength there. I think you've had fund participation in hogs and cattle, kind of be a bit surprising. I watch livestock more out of the corner of my eye. That's my husband Carl is my partner in crime, in life, business, and crime. Not
Yeah.
as much crime for real, but
Yeah.
he's the big livestock expert in a lot of
Okay.
ways, and in between the two of us. But he said he continues to believe, and I agree with him. That we see continued support. Demand is solid. People
Yeah.
like protein. I'm seeing more and more of the push to really kind of increase lean meats and things into diets, and
Yeah.
I think if we see a more protectionist trade type strategy too, you could see an increase in domestic meat demand. One of the things that we've been seeing recently was an increase in ground beef imports and some of these other things that could create softening domestic demand. But if we do look at taking a more protectionist stance or see a return to MCOOL, which is the country of origin labeling that we had seen a few years back, or several of these other things that could happen to kind of keep support underneath this market, and it's always ripe for a sell-off if you see active speculator participation, but it's never really a guarantee either if you have the fundamental supporting factors underneath it.
Okay. Ukraine play into any of this action in
Oh
wheat?
my gosh, yeah.
All right.
I
So
mean,
tell us, yeah. So tell us what's happening there. I know it's the breadbasket.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, I mean, you
it's like
have
the Midwest.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, Ukraine is a huge producer of grains, corn and wheat especially. They have some sun seeds and obviously other products that they produce. And then you have Russia, who's a huge producer of wheat.
Wheat. Yeah.
The smaller producer to a certain extent of corn and some of these other things. And so, right now, the market itself, the market structure itself, the cash markets, all of these things don't really show any sort of concern over what's taking place. But
That's
at the same,
amazing.
it is amazing, but at the same time, I mean, you have a lot of the same people that told us we had nothing to worry about, throughout much of February 2022 prior to the invasion, saying that this isn't a necessary escalation. It's just saber rattling. It's nothing to fear. And over the last couple of years here, we've proven that even in the face of war, we're able to move food.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you know,
True.
I, I do think that the risk of escalation is great. I do my best every night not to check the Twitter feed between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. Just because I'm worried that I'm going to wake up and one day we're going to have this escalation that could really kind of send us back higher again if Russia were to do anything, or either party at this point. I don't even think you could say Russia, like I think Ukraine could, work to. Do you see an attack to ports? Do you see something that ramps it up even without a nuclear type escalation? I mean, that's something that we're watching, and definitely something that could take place here over the next couple of months with the escalation that we've seen. I'm not taking sides by any means, but it was surprising to see the long range missile decision come after the election. I thought that, basically that was kind of put to bed to a certain extent.
Yeah.
I
People are trying to
understand.
figure that one out.
Right. Like I understand, but I don't understand. Because it is really an escalation that I I don't know. Like I said, it's one of those things that at any point in time, things could get hairy, and I will never forget, what happened shortly after the war when it came to market
Yeah.
prices and farmers and spreads and commercial. Like it was an
People have forgotten, Angie, so let's get out the telescope. All right.
right.
You had $13 wheat. All right.
Yeah,
So look
yeah.
at so this is really just this is how bottoms develop. They develop quietly and in silence and uh you know uh we need to get over 7 for a big breakout. But
Yeah.
it starts somewhere. So there's your weekly in wheat. Uh, there's your weekly in corn grinding, and yeah, I think beans have one more low in them. So anyway, yeah, interesting. For me, it's not hard to pick sides. One
Yeah.
side was an aggressor and
Oh yeah.
destroyed someone
Yeah.
else's country
Yeah.
just for grandiose reasons.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah. So anyway, what are you doing? What do you think for the retail guy, what they might be considering if they want to diversify, maybe away from stocks or the metals aren't working? You have a favorite play in the grains? Is it just buy dips in corn?
Yeah, I
Would you,
think.
or would it be spreads where sell the front month and buy the back? We haven't turned into, it's still a carrying charge market, right?
Yeah, we still have carry in the market. Corn
Yeah,
market's got carry in it out until well, through December actually right now, though it's a lot less than what it was. The wheat market has some pretty substantial carry in it as well, and beans we've seen, basically also, some strengthening in spreads there. On the spread side, I wouldn't necessarily, I mean, unless you know what you're doing, if you're a retail person on the outside looking in, I don't know if I would mess with the spreads.
yeah,
What the market says should happen on the balance sheet itself and what happens with physical movement will be two very different things. And I think, you could think that the spread itself should be more bearish, and actually see it, turn more bullish because we're trying to push bushels into the pipeline that just don't want to move. And so I think you could see some interesting developments in spreads here as we work towards delivery, especially in corn and wheat here. I think outright, like you said, buy the dips. If we break out above 434 in corn, I would think
434.
we would see some additional buying. Beans 985 seems like solid support, up to 1020 or so. I mean, really right now the range is the thing that I would say get comfortable with and look to get in and out each day basically based on where the range is trading.
Okay. All right. So let me show your website and how people could get a hold of you, Angie. So where's disco profile? Okay, that's a younger me. All right. Here's the goddess of grain,
Right there. Yep.
everybody, and this is where you could follow her. There's her husband and her business, and here's where you could find her. And I think that people look, if you believe in gold, which has been around a long time, well, you have to believe in the grains as being part of this commodity scenario coming up. I know they've been lagging, but what do you think this year? We're going to have La Nina, not El Nino, La Nina in full force. And my experience is that makes for in the Midwest dry, hot summers. Am I
It's
correct on that?
definitely, yeah, we're definitely going to be watching what the weather does. South American weather right now is super is solid. Like no concerns on the radar to speak of for
Yeah.
South American weather. US weather, we're way away from worrying about it, but it'll definitely be something to watch. I think it's the demand story. I think it's the return to inflation story. You saw Japan with the stimulus overnight and some of these other things, and yeah, I would not be the least bit surprised if in some way, shape, or form we didn't see soybean carryout drop below 400 million. and B, corn carryout drop, to 1.5 billion, give or take, here, and really kind of set us up for an interesting dynamic into 25.
Okay, there you go. So you could check her out. She has a free trial, Angie does, at her
Yes, I do.
consuac.net. So, check it out and start looking into the grains and maybe diversify away from currents, included, especially if you're a currency trader. You'll kind of know when the dollar is a headwind or a tailwind for these agricultural commodities. So great to hear from you, Angie.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I couldn't believe it's already time for me to come
It,
back. I was like, there's
I
no
know
way, right?
I know it's a blur, but thanks for, coming here and sharing your expertise about something that, we can't do without. Okay, you can't eat gold, can you?
No, you
So,
definitely can't. But you can
every,
corn and wheat. So feel
yeah,
free
that's
to
what, yeah,
come
go,
on
go,
in. The water is warm. So,
yeah,
but
check out Angie, and especially if you're a listener and you're in the business and you need someone to help you hedge your crop and when to put it on, give the goddess a call and talk to the husband and wife team. They'll help you with their understanding of the fundamentals of the grain complex and the meat complex. Thank you, Angie.
thanks for having me. Talk to you
All
again
right.
soon.
See you in the brave new world next year.
Right. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Angie Setzer, everyone. You can follow her on X at the Goddess of Grains. Thanks, Angie. Okay, everyone. So that's a wrap. Everyone cool? Everyone all right? All right. Yeah, check it out. I think grains, I've seen grains. They're very good technical markets. They have a reputation for it. Okay. All right. Well, everyone, you could join the team in looks like 19 minutes for the morning edge. We'll see everyone tomorrow, TGIF, and wrap it up. I think that, yeah, beans in the teens again, Forex Gal. All right, Joe. Don't just count your bushels, count your blessings. See everyone tomorrow. Adios.
Hey traders, this is Blake Morrow with Forex Analytix. Thanks for stopping by our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like these videos, share them, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of the content that we provide here for free. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you in the next video.